up, get out right out of your bed, that's your quicksand. Getting rid anxiety and head, you can fix it. Rid of stigmas, all of them you said, we ain't listening. Just remember, try to do your best, you can win this. Maurice Benard, State of Mind.
Hello, State of Mind. How you doing? What's up? What's up? If you like what you see, subscribe, because we're hitting our goal. Our goal is 200,000 subscriptions. You guys have been amazing. And all you gotta do is push that stupid red button. Beep, beep. You don't even have to pay. It's like beep, beep. Come on, it's not that difficult. Today, I have somebody who's like a unicorn, because you never see him do anything. And he's like Steve. It took about 3 years to get him to do this show. But he's here. I read in Google, it said American film, television, and voice actor, writer, and director. Directed a movie about postpartum. And let me tell you something. We're going to get more into it. But this individual, this movie, I saw because Rebecca Buddig was on State of Mind. And she goes, can you watch my movie before and I don't like, well, I mean, I read a book. It's like, but I watched it. First thing I said to her at the end, who directed that? She goes, Michael Easton. It was just spectacular. Really, really was. And I guess I just said his name, so here he is, Michael Easton. How are you?
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I want to start with, like, where you grew up and all that kind of stuff. Like we're on a date.
Yeah, speed dating. Move over real quick. My mom and dad are from Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, and I would split time. We always thought, I think we were going to go back. And then Belfast in the late 60s, early 70s was a pretty volatile place. And we'd come back and forth. And every time we come back, my dad would pick up a new job. So we did time in New York, and we did time in various parts of California. And yeah, it was a bit of a nomadic life.
What's Ireland like?
Yeah, it's
beautiful, green.
Yeah, I mean, we lived in the city. Belfast is an interesting, very interesting place. It had the largest shipyard in the world at one time, called Harland and Wolff. It's actually where the Titanic was built.
Oh.
And most of the people, a lot of people. My grandfather was a riveter in the shipyard. Dropped out of school at 13. Pretty hard life. But yeah, I love it very much. I mean, they're great penchant for storytelling.
Really?
Yeah, great storytellers. Good boxers, good storytellers.
Yeah, yeah.
Some good actors too. Now I'm not counting myself. I'm thinking of more like Daniel Day-Lewis and all these good dudes that Cillian Murphy and all these guys that are really doing so well. But yeah, that was pretty different lifestyle. And I'd go over there. We'd live there for a year. I'd develop an accent. I'd come back here, and then kids would tease me and make fun of me, and that was always a bit tricky.
What's like that kind of
kind of thing, just new school and stuff like that. So I think we did about 4 or 5 schools in a 6-year stint. We moved around almost every year. So
how'd you like that?
It's okay, a bit of gypsy blood and all that stuff.
Cool with that?
It was okay. It's interesting. We talk about these things, and so much of what we deal with now, I think, relates back to our childhood, right?
Yes.
Where we came from, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I find, and it took me a long time to sort of process this, because I think when we were children, right, we very much gimme.
Yeah.
And things we don't like, we push them away.
Yeah.
We don't want that. Whether we're eating it, we're sharing it, whatever we're doing, or what we're feeling. Right?
Yeah.
I only want to feel this. And so we suppress that. And I think we spend most of our lives suppressing that.
Yeah.
But it's still there. It's
yes.
in you, right? So these fears I had, abandonment, of always being new, I've carried them with me. And it's taken me 30 years to start going, unless I literally let that come up. I bring it up to the surface and I deal with it in whatever way that means, whether it's meditating, whether it's only then can you release it. And there's layer upon layer upon layer. And I'm still trying to get through the layers. I don't know if I'm halfway done yet, but I'm trying to bring up that
Now,
stuff.
when you said you release it, I'm
Yeah.
meditating, of course, but how do you really release it?
Yeah, I think you really have to come up and have just really an emotional confrontation with it to really recognize it. And that's the thing. It's so hard. I think that's the hardest thing for me is, and I think about this every day. You know, when you look in your side view mirror in your car, and it said objects in the mirror may appear closer than they seem. For me, that's a constant reminder every day that the way I see myself is not always accurate. Imagine a mirror is telling you that a mirror that should be this depiction of something is telling you it's not really what you see.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what I did, that I have to really recognize and know my truth and know myself. And when I let that up, I realize I'm recognizing those things within me, the good and the bad, and trying to figure out a way to process them and then release them. And it's amazing when you actually do it properly. And that's the other thing, is getting the right help to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it comes back to childhood. I was reading the kids a book the other day. We were reading Alice in Wonderland. And this one line stuck with me. One of the characters says, the other one, if you can't find the light, I'll sit with you in the dark. And I go, here's a children's book, you know, and it's
beautiful.
It sums up so much what we're doing, you know.
Yeah,
if you can't find your light, find someone that will sit with you in the dark, right? So whatever that is, it's getting to that point, and that's what I've been trying to do, trying to find the light. But sometimes you have to sit in the dark a little bit. Sometimes you can sit on your own,
and you have to sit in pain.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I mean, I've had some loss in my life. I lost my mom very young, and I realized I realized at the time I probably had pretty close to a breakdown that I just didn't recognize. That I think I tried to self-medicate in some ways.
That's the way, yeah.
Yeah, right? You sort of think, I'm going to numb this pain.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, suppressing it. So I don't think I dealt with that for 25 years or 30 years. And the interesting thing is, I am the same age now as my mom was when she passed. I don't feel very old, you know, but I've realized that was her life. So it's been a very reflective year for this. The last couple of years, I knew it was coming. You sort of feel these dates coming.
Yeah.
And it's been a very reflective time. And so this stuff is coming up. And I am, in many ways, ashamed of the way I handled it at the time.
Yeah.
I should have been, but I was young and I just didn't process it very well. And I ran from it. And I didn't treat people very well. I wasn't open to the people that wanted to help me. So much is just looking at yourself and figuring out your truth, right?
Wow, man. I feel like I'm talking to Gandhi.
No, man, no. This is all a lot of trial and error.
It is a lot of trial and error.
And you know, right?
Oh, man.
How many paths have you went down where you went, this is going to be the one, or this is going to be the one?
Yeah. I mean, it's like right now, I already told you I have suffering from anxiety. And I'm just looking up to God, man. Please give me the strength.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I can do this.
Right.
And, it's so difficult. And then you try, you go to see somebody to help you or whatever you need to do. But it's in the process is very, very hard. But exactly what you said, you have to dig inside of your truth. And a lot of it is your childhood. Right? I'm doing this exercise right now where I'm supposed to look at my little boy, which is me. And I'm supposed to tell the little boy that he's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to hug the little boy, tell him, because that's basically me.
Yeah.
Because my thing is I've asked, everybody, they're like my crutch. And I haven't been able to do it on my own, especially when I go through these anxieties. I don't know if you have any anxieties, like you go through that too?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And you get those feelings, right? That even when someone tries to help you, you get this sort of protective. You don't know how I feel. You can't understand. How hard I'm feeling.
Yes.
This. I know you don't. You're sitting there and you don't know what I feel.
Yeah.
You can't help me. You can't help me with what I feel.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's defense, right? It's
But you have to surrender, right?
You do, bro.
But surrendering means if you feel pain, you accept it. It's just hard because I just want to yell and say I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. But you're supposed to just accept it.
Yeah.
It's hard though.
It's really hard, bro. And finding that path to healing is hard. I remember it's funny, things stick in your head. So I think I was watching a show one time and guy told someone trying to help another character, and he basically told a story about finds himself in a deep hole, right? I'll say a metaphor, finds himself in a deep hole. And on day one, someone walks by and he yells up, "Hey, I'm down in this hole, I can't get out," right? Turns out it's a doctor, and he writes a prescription for some pills and he throws it down. A couple days go by, he takes all the pills and he feels slightly better, but he's still down in the deep hole, right? So someone else walks by, yells up to them, goes, "Hey." Turns out it's a priest. The priest tears out some scripture and throws it down to him. And he reads the scripture, and a few days go by, and it comforts him, but he's still down in the hole.
Yeah.
On the third day, his buddy comes by, and he yells down to him, and next to his buddy jumps down in the hole. And he goes, "What are you doing, bud? And now you're down in the hole with me." His buddy looks at him and he goes, "I know, but I've been in this hole before, and I know the way out."
Wow.
And I think it was actually Aaron Sorkin wrote that. So I mean, I think
Aaron
I think he did. I think it was The West Wing. But I remember hearing that, and it stuck with me always.
Yeah.
About being in a hole, and this idea of someone jumping down in a hole with you, and they know the way out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the hard part, what you're talking about. When you feel this, sometimes you doubt going to people.
Yeah.
Because you go, he's not going to be able to help me. But there is someone. I think that's the moral of that story. And not saying that's the thing, always a friend, but you do want somebody that understands your journey, right?
Yeah.
That's maybe been on the same journey.
But my thing is that I'm always looking for answers from everyone. And the reality is the answer is within yourself.
Yeah, you're the only one that can write that story, right?
Yeah.
All you can do is absorb everything.
This is nice. So let's get into how'd you get into acting from like,
Yeah, I've been asking that myself, bro. 35 years later.
35 years.
Well, coming up on it, I guess, right? I did my first thing in 1990. Been thinking about this a lot lately because I spoke at Kamor's memorial, and I was reminded we did our first movie together in 1990, a little low budget thing that Wings Hauser directed.
Wings Hauser.
Yeah. And just a great experience. I learned nothing but bad habits that I've been trying to cast away the rest of my life, the rest of my career. But yeah, bro, I always wanted to be, writing was really what I wanted to do. I was scared. Acting would have scared me. It's funny, my daughter and I share a lot in common. We can't get up in front of people, right? I could never get up in front of people. I never did a play in high school, in college. I never took a class. It's almost like when I escaped high school, I became a different person in college. I sort of became close to the person I wanted to be, but I still needed those 4 years to figure out the person I really was on some level, at least for those days.
Yeah.
And my mom had passed in that time and stuff, and so I was sorting through a lot of things. But I'd went to New York, and I'd gotten to this program, and good program, taught you to, we did all facets of it. You learned costume, you learned set deck. So you had appreciation for everything, like they do in New York, right? They try to have some foundation of like, hey, respect everybody because their contribution helps you, right? And so I'd written something and couldn't afford to pay any actors. So me and the two other writers were in the play, decided to do it. And someone from NBC came to one of the showings, and it was the old West Bank Theater, and came back, and we were all like, "Hey, was like, "What'd you think of the play?" And she looked at me. She goes, "That might have been one of the worst plays I've ever seen." She goes, "But you're not a bad actor." And I had written the play, so I was insulted in one breath, and I had student loans and everything. And she goes, "You should come see me." And I did. I went and saw her, and she sent me out, and I started.
That was it.
That was it, bro.
I mean, you've done a lot, man. I mean, guest stuff and
Yeah.
other stuff, and not just soap operas. Like,
No, I didn't do. I did a soap. I did Days.
oh, you
That
did
was one of the
Dave.
things they sent me out on, and I lived. It's funny. It's just down the street from here. There's a little thing. It used to be called the Holiday Inn Motor Lodge. I think it's now called the Tangerine. It's like one of those motels where you drive up and you walk right into your room.
Yeah.
It's right here, down the street. And I worked over at NBC, and because they'd flown me out. I thought this was great. They flew me out, first class to audition. I did a screen test. I flew back to New York, and when I got back, there's no cell phone days. That's how long it was. Message on the answer machine. You start on Friday. And I lived at that motel for like 7 months. I just didn't think I was going to have a job that long.
Dang.
So I paid $35 a night for 7 months, and I lived in that. Finally, I got an apartment out here, and that's where it started. And
So that, and then, but you got one life to live.
what it Days, and then I got fired. I was I was difficult, and they were difficult with me for being difficult, and I don't blame them for firing me. I would have fired me too. And then it did like 10 years of series work. That became kind of the joke. Like I'd go into the meetings and go, "Hey, listen, good news is all my pilots get picked up. Bad news is they all get canceled after one season." I think the first one I did was one called VR5, which was really a really cool show. I was really overwhelmed. Worked with these great actors, Louise Fletcher and Laurie Singer and
Wow.
Will Patton,
Yeah.
incredible cast and a great crew, and written by some really amazing people. I did two with Stephen Cannell. Loved working for Cannell. That's the reason I got in the Writers Guild. He was the kind of guy, "Hey, you want to write
He
one?
did
Write one."
everything, man.
He did. Steve was just, and I grew up with those shows, all those,
Yeah.
all those good Steve Cannell shows. I used to love, Wise Guy and Jump Street and all that stuff, and loved working for him. And yeah, 413 Hope Street lasted for a season with Jesse Martin and Richard Roundtree. He worked with Shaft, I learned so much from him. I always like to say I learned a lot of stuff from Shaft. It's really-
Chef was great.
He's amazing. He's such a gentleman. And then it's this big. I did Ally McBeal in The Practice.
Oh, you did Ally McBeal, right?
Yeah.
Something what did I put down? Ally McBeal. I don't know what it was, but
Yeah, that was the one time in my whole career where things changed overnight a little bit, right? That episode aired.
yeah.
'cause
What
he was-
happens when you do a show like that?
Well, he was the.
Did that show win an Emmy?
I did. It won an Emmy that year. And I think it did. I mean, she was amazing. I loved Calista. She's such an amazing actress. I love working for David. You'd like David. David was a hockey player, right?
Yeah.
So I think he approached everything, besides being a brilliant writer, I think he just had a really competitive approach to always making the best show he could make every episode.
Right.
What can we do to make the best episode?
He was badass, man.
Yeah, and I think he wrote, if I remember correctly, he wrote every episode of Ally McBeal in The Practice in 1 year. I know he had some people above it. I mean, he's just an amazing writer and incredibly prolific as well. That was the one time that I think 413 Hope Street was a show I did. It just got canceled, and I went over there, and I don't even know if I'd seen the show or had been on yet. But they had this idea for this like nude model in a sculpturing class who apparently was well endowed. And so my very first day, I hadn't even met the cast yet. And I had to go out fully nude with kind of a sock over my junk, and they're sculpting me. And I was so embarrassed because they were giggling and stuff like this. And I'm like, I resorted back to being like a 6-year-old boy with the girls giggling and I'm in class, And I had no idea how, and he becomes the first person, I guess, to be involved with Allie, right? She's kind of pining for her ex-boyfriend, I think was the plot. And so they thought, well, here's this young, attractive, intelligent, highly successful girl. She wouldn't just be pining for this guy. She'd move on. So this became the guy. And it was a character very different from me, but it was a lot of fun, and the words were brilliant.
How the hell did you stand there naked?
Oh, bro, I was scared. I've never been more scared in my life. I have such regard now because usually they treat sometimes you do these films and stuff, and they always have some girl that has to come in and be scantily clad or in a bikini. I'm the one over there now going, would you like your robe in between? Because it's so embarrassed. I've never been more embarrassed in my life.
God.
You know, because I was really insecure. And I think I went into actually, I know it's tough, I went into the audition and I walk in the room and ever walked in these rooms where everybody's ridiculously handsome. I don't mean like, all right, I'm all right looking.
Yeah.
You got like model guys, really just ridiculously. I turned around and walked out. I was like, I'm not going to get that. I did. And my agent goes, listen, they've seen you over at 413. They want you in there. And I'm like, you say that about every part I go in on. They want to see you. That old agent thing. And I went back up and I guess they found a common ground for they wanted somebody that was things. But there was the one time where, you know, as an actor, it's nice to be able to sit and observe other people, right?
Yeah.
It helps you.
Yeah.
To do your work when you can look at other people's mannerisms and how they do things. That was the one time that show aired that night. And the next day, everywhere I went, people were saying things. And suddenly I couldn't sit and watch them. They were sitting watching.
Yeah. But because, you know, you were naked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michael, you were naked.
Yeah, I know, bro.
And you're well endowed.
No, well, that was the suggestion. My dating picked up for a couple of weeks anyway.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was lovely, really nice too. And then
One Life. Let's talk about
One Life. So yeah, One Life.
John McBain.
One Life came out of. It was interesting. While we had I think one of the shows stopped. I think Total Recall. I did a show called Total Recall. It was like Showtime's first series,
man.
And that was amazing. Had a lot of fun doing that. I mean, you got to do the opening credits was actually the old movie Total Recall, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Right.
Our opening credits was their opening, like the space landing on Mars.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. And somehow that stopped, or there was a strike. And Teschner called me and said, "Hey," and I'd known Mark for years. I used to ride motorcycles with Mark 30 years ago, back at like the Hollywood Athletic Club. Teschner goes, "Hey, I've got this show. It's kind of going under. I don't know how long it's going to last. Come and do a 10-week arc on Port Charles, right?" And which was interesting. And I go, "Oh, soap." And I hadn't done a soap. It's like 10, 11 years at this point. And I go, "Well, what's the part, Mark?" And he goes, "Yeah, I can't tell you." And I go, "All right, well, look, it's got to be cop, lawyer, doctor, right? There's only 3 parts on a soap opera." So he goes, "The only thing is I need you to sign the contract first, right?" And I'm like, "All right." So I come down, I sign the contract, and I sit with Julie and all the creative people at Port Charles. And he goes, "Here's the thing. She's a priest who's got a twin brother who's a vampire. And it's going to turn out they're really just one character." And I went, I literally got up and walked out. I was like, "You can't do that. You're never going to pull that off on daytime, right? You know?" But they did. And so we came and did 10 weeks. And it was this really amazing young cast that just were, you know, some really great actors like Lynn and Torsten.
Yeah.
Kind of old, but all these young actors, you know, Kelly and Brian and all these really incredible young actors, and Allison, and they were incredible. So that lasted, I think, it was supposed to go off really quickly, and I think they got a couple of years out of it. And then they called it One Life, and I always wanted to go back to New York. That was really, I'd found myself here. Maurice, I don't know if you've done this where I missed being on the streets, right? The only thing about Los Angeles, I find you start moving away from people, right? You move up into the hills.
Yeah.
And you stop going out, you stop engaging with people. And I had found myself doing that. And it was kind of fueling some depression, you know? And I said, "You know what? This would be the best thing. Let's upend everything. Go back, get an apartment right on the busiest street, and engage with people every day." And that was great. For 10 years, that was amazing.
10 years.
Yeah, I would still be there, you know. My daughter was born there, and we were really happy. I was married there. I was really happy.
Now, you're doing some really great work on General Hospital.
Thank you, man. It means a lot coming from you.
No, but it's true. I mean, I've watched, and I can tell by people's responses. You know, we can't get into what you're doing, but how do you feel about that? It feels the acting.
I mean, it's been nice to have something to sink your teeth into, right?
Yes.
Even if it's not always executed exactly how you'd like it to be, or the timeline and the time frame has been rushed, or the opportunity to get to do something is pretty amazing. And obviously, I had a great affinity for Gregory Harrison. You know,
Yeah, I
plays my
love
dad.
Gregory.
Love him, man.
I love him.
Such a gentleman.
Sweet dude, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and really soulful. And
Yeah.
we've had so many great conversations. And obviously, you know, my dad passing, you know, 13 years ago, it's been, you have a void, right, on some of these things,
Yeah.
right? So not that he's like a father, he's more like a brother to me. I always call him brother. I go, hey, bro, what's going on? He's just that guy, but I love talking to him, and sort of, he just levels me, you know, when I talk to him.
Yeah.
I feel his energy, right?
Yeah.
He's just a kite surfer dude. And
He's like
he's
that.
got that, yeah, right? He's got this. And so anything in those scenes is just my affinity for him, right? I didn't have to think about anything
Yeah.
else in my life. It was just connecting to the notion of not seeing him every day, you know?
Yeah.
And that has had a powerful effect.
Yeah. So you were voted the 50 most beautiful.
Oh God. Once, and they never invited me back, bro. I think they caught their mistake.
What was it? You were the 50 most beautiful people. That's what it was.
I think People Magazine does that every year, man. And so they look, that's 50 people for like for what, 30 years now? That's a lot of people, like 1,500 people at this point. Yeah. I mean, look, that was it's interesting. You grew up with I don't know how your family is, but my mom and dad, you know, being from Ireland, no one ever really reinforced you. And this is literally how my family, it's not in any way an indictment of it. They didn't really enforce anything because they were always worried you get the swell head, right? And there was not really a lot, you know what I mean? There's not a lot of,
right.
It's better to kind of just keep the clamps on everything, right? But it was really interesting. So this came out, and I don't think we ever discussed it, right? But in those days, People Magazine was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And like it's like Denzel and Jodie Foster on the cover. So you're in the same magazine somewhere. You have you're connected to Jodie Foster or Denzel on the cover, right? So you're like, hey, finally sort of on the fringe, even though I'm just carrying someone's, you know, sweeping up after them or carrying their coattails. I'm at least in the club for a minute. And but we never talked about it. And it's interesting, after my mom passed away, I had to go clean up. My dad was pretty broken up, and I had to go clean up her things. And I found she had a little drawer, and she had all these books. She was a big reader, and I find at the bottom of it, it's a little brown bag, and there's 4 copies of the People Magazine that she'd bought at the supermarket.
Wow.
She'd kept them there with all her books, you know. So even though we never talked about it, it meant a lot. It meant something to her, and you know, that made me. I broke down pretty hard that day thinking about her at least being on some level proud.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It was really sweet.
That's
you know?
actually very nice.
Yeah,
cool.
It was really cool.
Damn.
Yeah.
Let's before we conclude, let's do a tribute to Kamar.
Yeah.
I just want you to tell me what he meant to you. Anything you want to say?
Yeah. It's still hard to talk about, man. It really is. Not a day goes by I haven't thought about him.
Damn.
And it has changed my life completely. My perspective on life has changed completely. I think that's the one thing he gave me in the end was, you know, don't take anything for granted. Life is so fragile, right? And it's beautiful, but it's very fragile. So don't let these little things worry about you, man. You're just lucky to have another day. But Kamar was everything that I wasn't. I met him on this first film that I talked about, and I was shy and introverted, and he was bold and so self-confident, and I was immediately drawn to that. So we complemented each other really well, you know, and you know, if you were around him, he loved life, and when you're around him, you loved life too, you know. And there always seemed like there was, you know, a little more oxygen in the room when he was in it.
Yeah.
Right. And world was kind of a dizzier place with him in it, and it meant the world. And you know, he and I were kind of like we talked a lot about boxing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We used to go to the fights a lot because he grew up in Vegas. We'd always go out to the fights, and we'd always talk about. People would say, why do you like boxing so much? And it's always hard to articulate that, right? But I think
Right.
one of the things is that you get in the ring or you watch it. But for all of us that have kind of done any time in the ring training with this, that is the truth. That's your truth. That's your true self is found in the ring, right?
Yeah.
There's no mask. There's no words to hide
No,
behind. There's no
nothing.
trickery.
No.
Whatever you've put into it is what you're going to get out of it in that
Right.
moment.
Right.
And you're going to put everything on the line, right? For one
Right.
moment, you're going to put everything on the line. I mean everything, because you
Yeah.
just had a guy die in the ring, right?
Yeah, it's life and
last
death.
month. Yeah, life or death, right? We hope it never comes to that, but obviously you're putting everything on the line. And that's one of the things that I loved about Kamar, because he knew that every day. He knew what he put into life, he was going to get out of it. The love you take is equal to the love you make, those. And so he had a passion for life, and I was always inspired by that. I think that's what we're always looking for, right? We're looking for somebody that their passion inspires our passion.
Of course.
And so every day he reminded me of that and about finding your true self and living that truth.
Damn. And you were with him at the end, right?
He was surrounded by his family and friends. He was holding his hand.
Damn.
All his family and friends were around him. There was so much love in the room. I mean,
I'm getting emotional.
this outpouring of, he never cried.
No?
Never, bro. He never broke down. He fought to the very end. He always said, I'm not sick. I'm getting healthy. I mean, he was a fighter to the end. He fought to the end.
Damn.
And that's what I mean by, and that's where it was like being in a ring, right?
Yeah.
His real truth came out, right? And that's who he was. He was a fighter. And there's no hiding and lying and no trickery from that, right? That's your self-truth.
And he
there.
believed in God 100%.
He believed in everything, bro. He believed that there was a better world that he was going to. And I think the only regret he had was one of the last things he said to me is, I have so many things to teach these boys, his sons, right? But they'll know. He had so many people, so many of his friends who will stay connected to Sherry and Michael and John, and they have Kaylin. And they'll know about their dad. They'll know about it.
Wow, man. I think I want to end it right there, man.
Okay, bro.
That was beautiful, man. Got me emotional.
Sorry about that, man.
No, that's all right.
It's good to feel things.
Yeah, no.
It's the worst thing to feel. The worst feeling you can feel is indifference or apathy.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be the other way.
I'm with you, yeah.
Yeah, even if it hurts more, or if even it makes you feel almost unstable.
Yes.
I'd rather feel unstable than feel nothing.
Then feel, yeah.
Then you're dead. You're
Yes.
dead already.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
All
Passion-
right. I want to
passion for
say
life.
about the State of Mind audience, Michael Easton, another one that is an open book, and he didn't pull any punches, and I appreciate that, because sometimes people come in here and not that it's wrong or whatever, that they just don't open up, but that's fine too. But what Michael Easton did was just gave a lot of knowledge, a lot of depth, and a lot of truth to what's important in this life, which is life. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, bro.
State of Mind.